Zeitoun, page 55. Zeitoun set out to finish securing the rest of his job sites. The air was breezy, the low sky smudged brown and gray. The city was chaotic, thousands of cars on the road. Traffic was worse than he expected. Brake lights and honking, cars running red lights. He took streets that no one fleeing would use. Downtown, hundreds of people were walking to the Superdome carrying coolers, blankets, suitcases. Zeitoun was surprised. Previous experiments using the stadium as a shelter had failed. As a builder, he worried about the integrity of the stadium's roof. Could it really withstand high winds, torrential rain? You couldn't pay him enough to hide there from the storm. And anyway, in the past, it had been little more than a few hours of squealing winds, some downed trees, a foot or two of water, some minor damage to fix once the winds had passed. He already felt good. New Orleans would soon be largely vacated, and being in the empty city always felt good, at least for a day or two. He continued to make his rounds, securing the last few sites, and arrived home just before 6. Kathy called at 6:30. She was stuck in traffic a few miles outside the city. Worse, between her own confusion and the unprecedented volume of cars, she had gone the wrong way. Instead of taking the I-10 west directly to Baton Rouge, she was I-10 heading east. With no way to correct her error, she would have to cross Lake Patrin and swing all the way back through Slidell and across the state. It was going to add hours. She was harried and exhausted, and the trip had barely begun. Zeitoun was sitting at home, his feet on the table, watching TV. He made a point of telling her so. "Told you so," he said. Kathy and the kids were expected at her brother's house for dinner, but at 7 o'clock she traveled less than 20 miles. Just short of Slidell, she pulled into a Burger King drive-thru. She and the kids ordered cheeseburgers and fries and got back into the road. A little while later, a foul odor overtook the Odyssey. "What is that?" Kathy asked her kids. They giggled. The smell was fecal, putrid. "What is that?" she asked again. This time the girls couldn't breathe. They were laughing so hard. Zachary shook his head. "It's McKay," one of the girls managed before collapsing again into hysterics. The girls had been sneaking the dog pieces of their cheeseburgers, and the cheese was clogging her pipes. She'd been farting for miles. "That is awful," Kathy wailed. The kids giggled more. McKay continued to suffer. She was hiding under the seat. They passed Slidell and soon met up with I-190, a smaller road. Kathy figured it would be less traffic, but it was just as bad. An endless stream of brake lights, 10,000 cars, 20,000 lights, she guessed, extending all the way to Baton Rouge or beyond. She had become part of the exodus without entirely registering the enormity and strangeness of it. 100,000 people on the road, all going north and east, fleeing winds and water. Kathy would only think of beds. Where would all these people sleep? 100,000 beds. Every time she passed a driveway, she looked at the home longingly. She was so tired, and not even halfway there. She thought again of her husband. The images she'd seen on the news were absurd, really. The storm looked like a white circular saw heading directly for New Orleans. On those satellite images, the city looked so small compared to the hurricane, such a tiny thing about to be cut into pieces by a gigantic spinning blade. And her husband was just a man alone in a wooden house. Zeitoun called again at 8 o'clock. Kathy and the kids had been on the road for 3 hours and had only gotten as far as Covington, about 50 miles. Meanwhile, he was watching television, puttering around the house, enjoying the cool night. "You should have stayed," he said. "It's so nice here." "We'll see, smart guy," she said. Though she was exhausted and was being driven near crazy by her flatulent dog, Kathy was looking forward to a few days in Baton Rouge. At certain moments, at least, she was looking forward to it. Her family was not as easy to deal with, this was certain, and her visit could take a wrong turn quickly and irreparably. "It's complicated," she would tell people with 8 siblings. It had been turbulent growing up, and when she converted to Islam, the battles and misunderstandings multiplied. It often started with her job, as she'd come in, drop her bags, and the suggestions would come. "Now you can take that thing off." She'd been a Muslim for 15 years, and they still said this to her, as if the scarf was something worn under duress. Only in the company of Zeitoun, a disguise she could shed when she was not around. As if only in the Delphine household could she finally be herself, let loose. This was actually the command her mother had given the last time Kathy had visited. "Take the thing off your head," she said. "Go out and have a good time."